thanks for jumping on again. We're
Yeah, yeah,
excited. And
yeah,
things have changed since we last met, like a lot, right?
yeah,
Since we last did the podcast.
yeah.
So we have better questions now. And
Okay, let's go.
you were one of our first, so we now are way better at this.
We
So
certainly think we are.
Tim, how have things been different since October when we last
Well,
talked?
funny you should say that. So during our last conversation, I was going through due diligence to get acquired by Coalition, and now we're part of Coalition as of November 10th, I think it was.
Okay.
So, which, believe it or not, means it's been 5.5 months that we've been now part of the largest cyber insurance provider with over 100,000 policyholders,
Wow.
and growing, and it's been super exciting. So yeah,
Now,
where
how
where
does
to dig
that
in?
look from, yeah,
Yeah,
how does that look from carrying? I mean, you built wire speed to
yeah,
solve very specific issues. Then you get gobbled up by the largest or one of the largest cybersecurity insurance. And that seems like a new play for a cybersecurity insurance. And maybe not, maybe
it's
they all
actually
have
not.
theirs, but
It's
like
actually
talk.
not a new play, Mike. And
Okay.
what's really funny, okay, so this is gonna be my closest to a Babe Ruth moment, but although I will asterisk and say I forgot. When as one does when you create a company, you think about your potential exits, because if you don't, then you're just not thinking about what you're going to do, and you're too immature, right? So we thought about our exits, and we listed out several different categories, but we listed out two companies by name, one of whom was Coalition. So
Huh.
this is my like Babe Ruth pointing to the center field moment. Only thing is, when they actually came and approached us and said, "Are you open to acquisition?" I said, "No." It's like that was my first reaction. So I can't really truly claim it like it's a like I called it. But we saw cyber insurance is sitting in the driver's seat for all of cybersecurity. I got convinced of that by one of the guys that was in my seed round. This guy named Jeremiah Grossman. He's on his third startup right now. He's a been doing this a long time. If you've ever heard the term cross-site scripting, like he invented it. So
Uh-huh.
he was one of the first guys to do web application stuff back when he worked for Yahoo, way a long
Hmm.
time ago, like 2000, right? And so Jeremiah was saying 5-10 years ago, like cyber insurance is going to drive everything, and if you stop and think about it, it makes real total sense. If I'm a small to mid-sized company, I'm gonna get cyber insurance at some point. Why? Because of compliance. I'm going to go through like SOC 2 or something to get a deal. In order to get this deal, SOC 2 is going to say, "Do you have cyber insurance? Do you have certain controls?" And they'll like say, "Yes, I do." "Oh crap, I don't have cyber insurance. I'll go get a policy." And so as soon as you do that, you are now transferring risk to this third party, right? What's really fun about this is Josh Omada, the founder of Coalition, sat back and he said, "Okay, if you his story, by the way, if you ever want to feel unproductive in life, you should go hear his story. He sold his first company in high school to Microsoft.
Oh,
Uh,
wow.
Dang.
yeah, so he's been doing a lot of cool, fun things. But when he got done, he was the CXO at Cloudflare, part of the founding team over there. And
Hmm.
when he got done, like got to a certain point with that, he was like, "Okay, what's my next thing? What do I want to do?" And he thought about the mission that he wanted to go solve first. It's not about money for him. It's about like, what can I do that's more mission driven? And for him, the mission was go protect the unprotected. Now, and that's still the mission of Coalition to this day. So he sat back and thought, like, what's the best way to do this? And he looked around and he said, the biggest opportunity for disruption is insurance, because insurance writes these policies and they go, "Here's a PDF document. Call me when you're breached." And he's like, "That's dumb. Why don't you get in the game and be active with it?" And so from day one, he's changed this model around. So we saw Coalition specifically because of how they go, like they created this whole active insurance concept, and we'll write you the policy, and then guess what? First of all, what's really good about Coalition is they're very good at deselecting bad risk. So I'm going to give you some insurance terms I've learned in the last 5 months. So for everyone that's following along at home, I've only known them for like a hot minute, so it's okay. One of them is soft markets. Insurance goes through hard markets and soft markets. We're in a soft market right now. What that means is there's all this money, this capital on the outside. So all these investors are like, "Where do I put my money right now?" And they're all like, "Hey, we'll put it in the cyber insurance stuff because it looks like a hot space to be." And so with all this influx of cash to try to insure companies, you have what's called a soft market. It means there's way more insurance opportunities. Therefore, the price drives down. So the price on insurance has driven down these last few years. It's easy to get insurance right now. But guess what? All the major players are over here signaling, gee, it's actually very expensive to underwrite you and to pay for your claims. Like the ransomware is costing us a lot, business email compromise costing us a lot, funds transfer fraud costing us a lot. And then now there's stuff with AI and privacy that's also costing a lot. A lot of them are like not even covering it. And they're just trying to figure this out. So they're signaling they're going to go to a hard market. Usually in a soft market, a insurance company struggles, right? Like it's because there's a glut, like but Coalition has grown during this time frame. And the reason why Coalition has grown is because we're really good at figuring out who is a brown banana. Like we got all these bananas. I want to bid on the green and yellow ones. I don't want to buy, I don't want to bid on the brown ones. And that leaves the brown bananas for the rest of the soft market that are going, I've got money. I got to quote somebody. So we will either quote high or won't quote at all for companies that we think are likely to get a breach. And we do that because one of the neat things about Coalition's history is they acquired a company called Binary Edge back so Coalition's 9 years old right now. So 2 years into the journey, about 7 years ago, they acquired Binary Edge, which is one of the first attack surface management companies out there. And so Coalition every single week is scanning the entire internet. So when you apply for insurance, we already know what you have facing the internet. Our underwriting team is looking at that, and there's certain signals that we collect based on that we're like, yeah, you're a minute away from getting a breach, so we won't underwrite you. And then there's other ones we'll say, okay, we'll underwrite you if you fix certain things, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So this whole space is really fascinating. And on top of that, like the last part of the active insurance is, okay, cool, Mike, here's your policy. I'm not just going to sit back and wait for next year. I'm going to sit here, and when something big comes out, like what was the name of the most recent? There's a big React to Shell was the biggest vulnerability. Like that, every time we get these name vulnerabilities, everyone goes wild. Well, React to Shell was a really, really big one. What's neat about Coalition is they're able to look at the scanning data we already collected and say, okay, we need to tweak one thing to go collect a little bit more data to see who's really vulnerable. They went and scanned everybody that same day within a matter of hours. All like 100,000 policyholders, all their web properties, everything, to find this component, this library, this part of websites, right? We find out that, okay, you're using this and you're vulnerable. And on top of that, we noticed that 12 of our customers already had a web shell, which is a nice, fancy, geeky way of saying a backdoor was already planted. So a bad guy already found it, already popped the vulnerability, and left a backdoor for themselves to get back in. So what does Coalition do during that moment? Like what they do, they contact you about critical vulnerabilities whenever there's an issue. So we're not just sitting back waiting for a breach. We reach out, and on that day there was so many. It was fascinating to watch. I was brand new to the Coalition side, got to see this. They literally said, "Here, we're going to split up lists of customer names, and we need volunteers to call them, and we'll give you a script of what to say to the customer." Like, these are people that don't know this, right? Like it's an all hands on deck moment. We called everybody, right? Guess what? Out of the tens of thousands of customers that had React to Shell, not a single claim, not one. React to Shell like ate a lot of people's lunch, and a lot of companies got breached, but none of ours did. And so that is just like a testament to the whole, like, we own your risk. We're now incentivized to help you. And so how does that translate for MDR? Well, guess what? The next big thing is, can I monitor when something bad gets through the first layer of defenses? And can we do it in a way where we can respond very, very quickly, which is the whole point. Like the golden rule of security, Coalition has referred to this as the golden rule of security is speed. It's like, well, guess what, man? Like, we called it wire speed for a reason. So it was a really, really good fit. And so now we're doing some really neat stuff for policyholders. And there's cool incentives, discounts, and there's even customers that aren't our policyholders because they couldn't qualify before, that now, because if they do buy WireSpeed as their MDR, we will actually waive a lot of the problems and help them get insurance and get them better quotes than they would get from the market, because we would have looked at them before as brown bananas. But if you've got WireSpeed in there, we'll actually look the other way on a lot of those brown spots and consider you and help you get to yellow. Is basically the way to take the banana analogy too far. But so yeah,
it's so interesting, and I don't know that much about the insurance industry other than what I pay for. But it seems to me like you're offering this service that you could theoretically charge more for, but at the same time, you're also creating an opportunity where you have to pay out less claims. So in theory, you could charge less. So I guess I'm just curious, like, is that part of the model to say we're going to give you like your premiums are going to be less because we're providing this extra, or is Coalition more on the premium side of insurance? Where does Coalition fit in terms of offering insurance?
So it's a mix. So WireSpeed's not free, right?
Right.
WireSpeed is a paid service, but it does end up a lot of times in some cases, some customers with their policies, it'll end up free or even cheaper in the long run because you'll get up to like 12.5% discount on your premiums. So that sometimes we can pay for it just out of that alone. Just depends on the size of the company and what the risk profile is. We are, however, we just announced that we had an insurance conference just this past week where we had brought all of our brokers to New York, and they had me get up on stage and tell everyone what we're going to do. And so, roughly in July timeframe, we're going to offer up what we're calling login security. So, in Coalition world, we have this application called Control, and Control is how you control your risk, right? And it's our platform. So, you're an insurance customer, you got a policy, you log in, you'll see things like, hey, we found the 0-day vulnerability. There's a critical thing, whatever. We tend to we don't tell you about things very often because we only tell you about things that lead to claims. And that's the other real cool advantage is we're sitting on all this claims data because we see what we get to see everyone's worst day. That's the vantage point that we get. That's our superpower and advantage. So we see everyone's worst day. So we know what controls fail. We have a really large incident response team that is constantly working cases and working, dozens of ransomware cases every single quarter, sometimes hundreds and hundreds of BEC cases every quarter. So we know what kinds of things are going on. We see them. And so as a result of that, we have better insights. So Josh, like going back to your core question, yes, WireSpeed is an add-on, but what we're announcing that we're coming in the second half of this year in July is we're going to give away what we're calling login security, which is really an ITDR, so an identity threat detection and response offering powered by WireSpeed, but it'll be embedded into our Control application, and we're going to do that for free for anyone who's a policyholder. So we're making a bet that we can afford to give this away. Now, keep in mind, competitors charge somewhere between $2, $10. I've seen as much as like $15, $20 a user a month for this. And we're just going to go, yep, it's included. And we're doing it for a couple reasons. One, the big bet is exactly what you laid out there. Like we think we can actually reduce the likelihood of BEC claims. And so if that happens, it pays for itself. And two, we put that out there as an opportunity to go, look how good what we've built the tech is. Look how good this tech is, right? If you like this, we can, for an uplift charge, go monitor not just your identities, but also monitor your endpoints, your servers, your cloud, your SaaS, your networks, like all of the things. And even that's still a very competitive in terms of price. So you got that. And so and then there's insurance benefits that come from it, et cetera. So all of that is just to tie all this together. The bow of this is Coalition owns your risk. And since we own your risk, we have a lot of incentives to stay in the game.
As you've seen all of these different compromises are in claims, BEC, ransomware, other things, what stories and where are you seeing the most, right? Like where are the most claims coming from? Like
By
I think that would
quantity,
be interesting. Say that again.
The quantity by far is BEC, business
Okay.
email compromise, by far. So I'm close. It's like
So explain that to
70%.
people that don't understand more for like the CEOs that are like, what's BEC and like why should we care? And we're probably the ones like messing it up too.
It's
like so explain like what you're seeing, maybe from an insight that you would have that everybody doesn't, because you've seen this a lot.
Yeah. So there are two things that are very, very similar. There's funds transfer fraud, or FTF, and there's BEC, business email compromise. I don't blame you if you get it mixed up. It's confusing. It's really confusing. So basically, think of it like this: if somebody gets into one of your employees' email, and for whatever reason, what that really means is they've stolen credentials at the end of the day. They've stolen access. They've stolen a session, or they've stolen a password. If you've got MFA, doesn't matter. Like there's still ways of getting around this. There's phishing resistant MFA, like the FIDO2 passkey stuff, which is actually very, very, very good. And you should go roll it out, but it's challenging to deploy. And not everyone's gotten there. So as long as that's not deployed, doesn't matter. We see customers basically at least somebody every day, and either in our MDR space or on the policyholder side, that gets a MFA phish, so multi-factor authentication phish. So you get this email. It looks like it's a workflow. Like somebody says, here's an invoice, or here's I've shared this proposal with you or whatever. And you're like, okay, I think this is a legit thing. You go, it's one of your people that is trying to do the right thing, right? They're opening this document. When they go to open this document, it's actually taking them a link to what looks like a OneDrive or whatever. So it's a Microsoft login. They go try to log in with Microsoft. It's not unique to them. You could do this on Google Workspace too, but it's most commonly on Microsoft. And you do all the things. You put in your passcode from your one-time passcode or your push, whatever your MFA authenticator is. What happened is, what you didn't realize is there's an adversary, a bad guy, that hosted a fake login portal. And it's really a proxy. And then this is a fun technical word, but just think of it as like a picture frame, right? So they put a picture frame around the actual login page. And so because they're the frame and it looks pretty, what you don't see is if you turn that frame sideways, you can see, oh, there's depth here. And they're sitting in that layer in front of you. And because they're in that layer in front of you, they were able to take the session token. So they're able to get that access that you would have done. So they steal that. And once they do that, they're now going to then log into your email, and they'll do things nefariously. Like they'll start, real commonly, they'll just go, and this is where it starts to blend into funds transfer fraud. So now I'm in your email. Now, as a bad guy, I want to monetize this access. So how do I do that? Well, the easiest way is to say, is this person that I just stole their credentials, is this person a financial person? Are they doing accounts payable and accounts receivable? Do they have invoices? Is there a business relationship with third parties? Do I see things like, are they sending, as the best target for them is somebody who would send an invoice to a partner, to a customer of yours, right? And then they go and they see that and they go, awesome. Now I've got a recent invoice for $23,000, because usually these are like 5-digit numbers of damages at a time, right? It's like in the 20s to $70,000, $80,000 is usually where it is. And so it's painful, but it's like a death of 1,000 paper cuts. It's not like ransomware where it's like a 7-digit, problem. It's a lot of 5-digit problems. So they get in and they see this and they go, okay, what I'm going to do, step one, I'm going to put in a mailbox rule that says, like if I'm sending it to Mike, I'm going to say, okay, any email coming back from Mike, what I want to do is mark it as read, and I want to bury it in a folder you're never going to look inside your mailbox. That's the first thing they do. So they set this up. So then they'll go take that invoice PDF that let's say Josh is the victim, that Josh sent to Mike. They'll take it offline, they'll edit it, and they'll put their bank account and routing number in the invoice. They'll send an email then to Mike and go, hey, I'm sorry I messed that up. Finance wants me to use this other account. Something like that. Sounds really benign. And everyone goes, oh, okay, cool. And then what does Mike do? Mike goes, sounds good to me. Update the account payable system inside of QuickBooks or like whatever you're using, NetSuite, whatever. And boom, the account, the payee is modified, schedule the payment to go out. And that payment then goes to bad guy's bank. Generally speaking, an ACH payment, you've got like 5 to 7 days. If it's a wire, you've got like 1 to 2 or 3. And this is where, when this happens, generally speaking, you don't notice, right? And by the way, fun fact, the industry that gets hit the hardest with this is construction. And the reason for that is construction is full of subcontractors who are always paying each other 1099, and they're always late paying each other, right? That set of characteristics, really common to be behind schedule or whatever. What that means is I may not notice for 30, 60, 90 days that if I'm Josh, that Mike hasn't paid me. Right. And if that happens, if I go that long, I'm like, hey, man, I didn't pay you. And Mike goes, wait, hold on. I thought I paid that. And then there's a whole lot of back and forth finger pointing. And then eventually you figure out, oh, dude, I paid where'd this go? You sent me this invoice. And Josh goes, I never sent you this invoice. And so that's where BEC becomes funds transfer fraud. And so if somebody can persist in your inbox long enough and to the right person, somebody in your accounting team, they can potentially steal, but just trick basically a 7-digit number, but like 5 digits at a time, right? It can happen. And so this is where it gets in. So what's neat about Coalition is we have a really good relationship with the Secret Service. And so on the claim side, we have the ability to claw back funds probably better than anybody. I heard a stat, I'm going to botch it, but I heard a stat last week. It's something like 1/3 of all Secret Service clawbacks, not 1/3 of all insurance-based, but 1/3 of all clawbacks were initiated by a coalition. So just to show you how big this is, how big of a problem it is. So that's why BEC matters. It's because it does that. Now that's not the extent of funds transfer fraud. Everyone's probably gotten one of these crazy texts that says, "Hi, hey Josh, it's Mike, your CEO. I need you to make this payment right away." And you look at it and go, "Dude, Mike, that's not Mike's number." And you just kind of laugh at it. By the way, when you're a startup and you start getting these, that's how you know you made it, right? The bad guys found you. Like, hey, we're a real company now. We're getting these.
They want my money.
Yeah, so that's the other one that happens. And so funds transfer fraud can happen without taking over someone's email. It can just be like, I can just trick you. But at the end of the day, like, safety tips for everyone at home just watching this, like, real simple. You get an invoice that comes in from a partner, doesn't matter. Get on the phone and verify it. Call your client. Call your provider. Make sure you understand, like, this thing changed. I just want to double check it out of band with you real quick, and call the number you already have in your contacts. Don't look at the number from the emails that came since. Just make that a standard rule, and all this kind of really cuts back and it goes away.
And then how does so besides being great on the back end and wire speed, they're like, how would you even find a business email compromise where others can't? Like, or are you preventing that with your identity? Like so now I'm a CEO, I'm scared because you just told me what happens and I really don't have all the controls. I can't train or haven't trained everyone to pick up the phone and call. Well, you can't train your thousands of customers to do it right, right?
And
When
even
they
if you did,
receive
they're
an
going to
invoice.
forget.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're going to be well-intentioned and moving fast, and they're going to make a mistake. So the issue there, Mike, is yes. So how WireSpeed sees it is we see all these logins, and the first thing is the login from an unusual pattern of behavior. It's like we have the patterns of behavior for Josh. I know Josh normally logs in from Utah. I see these certain things, and suddenly this is what happens. So the bad guys are getting smarter and smarter. They'll figure out roughly where Josh is from. They'll actually try to buy privacy VPNs that have like egress endpoints in that location. So they'll say, I'm on Proton VPN or I'm on NordVPN and I'm now connected to Salt Lake City. And that looks relatively normal, right? But the problem with it is that first login that we described a minute ago, where it's like the picture frame, it's the guy, the man in the middle, the fake login, that has to live in a web hosting provider, has to live in a data center someplace because it's a website, right? It's a fake website. So what a pattern we see a lot is Josh logging in from a hosting provider's IP address, which doesn't make any sense. There's some reasons for doing this, but not a ton. And then when the bad guy goes active with it or hot with it, he's going to switch most likely to a privacy VPN. He's going to switch to obscure his location. So we're seeing that. We're also seeing a trend that's even just there because attackers are just like, well, we're getting pressure. So what do we do next? And the next step down from that is to go with called residential proxies and residential VPNs. And this is a whole thing. I feel like this is like down the weeds real far, but just so you understand, there are companies who will go buy like cable modems and fiber connections in residential areas. They'll go to like an apartment complex and they'll go to the local internet provider and go, hey, I need like 50 cable modems at this apartment. And you're like, what? And the cable modem company will go, okay, I guess your money's green. I'll take it. And they go set these up. And then what they do is they use that as the host their VPNs. So they come out from those IP addresses that look like they're in a residential area. That looks like it's in a house or an apartment or whatever. And they're doing that because why? Well, a VPN provider like a NordVPN, those are now on lists. Like there are companies that track those and they know what those look like, but the residential ones are harder to track. Now there's companies that are tracking those too. So this is just part of the cat and mouse game. It's always going to get, like anytime we start solving it, it's going to go down a layer in depth. And so this is where we play. So we see things like that. And then the second thing we see, if we don't see that login or the login is suspicious to us, but it's not enough to go, man, I really want to disrupt Josh right now and reset his password and contain his sessions. I don't really want to do that actually, because if I do that, Josh's going to get mad at me if I'm wrong. So I got to be very careful about making that decision. So what I'm going to do instead is I'm going to wait a little bit longer until I see what we call a primary signal. And so for us, a primary signal is, hey, Josh, you just made a really weird mailbox rule that's going to prevent you from seeing all the mail from one of your clients. That is not really common. So that flag, that signal combined with the weird login signals, so we go, your account's been compromised. Let's go revoke the sessions, which just means Josh has to log back into Microsoft Teams on his phone. Like it's not that big of a deal. And then we'll go undo that rule. Worst case, guess what? If we're wrong, you have to recreate that rule. And I'm going to look at you sideways and go, why are you doing that to your partner? Why you don't want to read your partner's email? That doesn't make sense. And 99 times out of 100, that's never a problem. Like that combination is, boom, we know exactly what it is. But that means generally that threat actor got pretty far, maybe have sent emails, and we might have to go, Josh, go tell everyone that email that you emailed in the last 12 hours that's not really you. And that's embarrassing. And we want to prevent you from having to tell your partners, hey, I got my email compromised. it had to be easy. You don't have to tell people that, right? So that's the game. That's where we play. We spend a lot of time trying to be as fast as we can. Wire speed is last 30 days. All of our customers, we have more than 2.5 million endpoints now on the platform, hundreds of thousands of users, and we triaged every single signal. So our median time to coming to a verdict on every single alert and detection out of all of our customers' environment was under 700 milliseconds. So
Wow.
less than 1 second to come to a decision, and nobody's doing that. And that's what's really neat. So the power of being able to do this really, really fast, and the way we did it, we have really good unit economics, which aligns greatly with insurance, because it means we can start experimenting. The stuff that we're doing now, the freemium stuff, we're just going to keep experimenting and keep playing. And there's going to be a neat tie where it's just, at the end of the day, if I'm a mid-sized company, I just want to transfer my risk, like just handle it. Like I don't like this stuff. I don't want to learn this stuff. I don't want to employ somebody who specializes in this. Just take care of it for me. And that's where we'll be.
Wire speed comes to a customer, or is it the insurance comes first? Like what comes first
Both.
as far as how that is?
Both.
Either one?
Yeah, we do both. We have partners like you guys that will introduce us to clients, and we'll talk just about their monitoring scenario. And then usually the insurance thing is going to come up because it's just everyone's usually got insurance, and we'll figure out who do you have? I'm like, oh, cool. Hey, you actually already a policyholder. Did you know you can get a discount if you bring us in? So we'll save you some money on your insurance policy at renewal, and then we'll also get you the best in class monitoring coverage.
Is AI playing into how you're resolving those things in 700 milliseconds, or not much?
Yeah, I mean, it is yes and no. So here's the fun thing: we use AI every day. We use it really, really heavily on the R&D side for when we're doing research against threats, and also doing development against we have a very AI first development practice with our developers and code and everything. We use AI for case summaries, and we use AI for certain detections that will ask AI to help with. The bulk of what we're doing is actually a lot of very, very fast purpose-built code. And that's how we can do this sub-second. Because anyone that's done anything with AI, like, yes, it's great, it's powerful and amazing, but sometimes multi-step hops take 5-10 minutes. And guess what? Like sometimes that's the difference between the analogy I always like to do is like, if I came over to your house today and I struck a match and then dropped it on your carpet, you're going to be really mad at me. If I stamp it out immediately, you're going to be less mad than if I left it for 5 or 10 minutes, right? Cybersecurity is the same way. If I let that threat or that threat actor come in your environment for 5, 10, 15 minutes, an hour, a half day, like your house could be engulfed, right? So like, we don't want that. We want to go as quickly as we can. So we use the right tools at the right time. So AI is a great tool. It's not the right tool for everything.
Has that changed much in like the last 6 months? I mean, AI is moving so fast. I imagine you guys are right on the cusp of how it can help you.
I mean, it does. So what's really changed in the last 6 months is AI's ability to generate code. AI's been able to generate code for some time, but it's getting better and better. It's still we have our threat engineers every single day. We'll look at certain things coming through the environment, and as part of our quality assurance is how we keep our humans in the loop, right? We're looking at things for spot checking we use a ISO standard for statistically sampling everything that comes through, and we'll see something. Oh, this is a problem, and we'll use tools like Cursor and Claude Code, and we'll say, like, literally from Slack, you go at Cursor, here's an example of something I need you to go fix, and we'll go dictate what we want changed. Cursor will go give us the deltas and the changes. And Cursor will submit what's called a PR, a pull request. That's a change to our code that we will then human spot check and review and go, yep, send it. And so that's cutting down so for us, we're spending a lot of time saving a lot of time on the reaction side, like when we need to adjust and adapt and change. It's not so much on the analysis side. We're using the analysis for certain pieces of it, but we've also launched our own Ask Wirespeed AI bot that's inside the platform. So where we see AI really being a big deal is merged in with the customer support experience. So I got this detection, I have a case for it, it's got description and everything else, but I still have a question about it because I'm not super familiar. So whenever you hit us up to ask a question, the AI takes the first swap at it. Like it will look at it and it will run those multi-step agentic processes, and they take minutes to go give you an answer, because that's where this is really good. When we have time to be thorough, to answer it correctly, great use for that tool. When we want to be really, really fast, I need to be very, very purpose-built. Another silly analogy I've been using recently is if you want to shoot down an enemy fighter jet that's running at Mach 2.5, you can't have another missile that's going Mach 2.5 because it'll never catch. right? It can't be going Mach 2.6 because that means that it's barely making ground while the fighter jet's still taking out targets. So like you have to have something that's going like Mach 5 to go knock down a plane that's going Mach 2.5. So we have built very purpose-built, very lean and fast code that is those fast little missiles to take out the AI-enabled attackers, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it's fascinating.
AI-enabled attackers. So how are they using AI? What have you seen as well? Like, and what's their next step, right? They're now going with home routers and that. What's next? What do you see as like the evolving? I don't know if they already
I'm
know
not
it.
chicken
It's
little.
like,
I've spent 26 years now fighting hype in cybersecurity. So like I am not the one to just go jump on the hype train. However, and so like a year ago, if you would have said AI enabled, when it's like, yeah, okay, what they're really doing, the best use of AI about a year ago was when I write my fishing lures. So we call these lures. That's the just like when you're casting, but obviously fishing with a pH, right? So when I'm creating these attempts to fraudulently trick you, remember how we used to train everybody to look for the typos, right? And they've been using ChatGPT for 2 years now. So those are all clean. You're not going to see that. Those guys that don't speak English because they live in the Philippines or they live in Russia or like Eastern Europe, right? And they don't have legitimate business opportunities, so they think attacking America is the right way to go. They're going to go write these lures and they're going to use AI to fix them up, right? Same thing, North Korea, write lures to fix them up, make them look clean. So that's the thing that we saw first a year ago. There is a really interesting case that came out that is, I'm finally going, yep, okay, this is a thing now. I've got evidence and I've got data behind it. There was the Mexican national government and several province or state governments inside of Mexico. There's a really, really complicated attack that just came out. There's a big write-up on it. Basically, the gist of it is one Spanish-speaking threat actor using what looks like Claude code and also, or say Claude, Anthropic, and also OpenAI, ChatGPT did in fact use those tools to navigate and further exploit and further move it laterally and privilege escalate and then collect data out of those environments. And we've got forensic evidence of this. And this is what like I'm not. I was always like, I'll wait till I see it. Now I've seen it, so now I'll say yes, we're seeing this. So what they were able to do, how this was found, right? So obviously there was a breach. And I always, do incident response, you do forensics, and you work your way backwards. So in the process of doing that forensics, they found remnants of an authentication token to Anthropic for Claude, which means like, so somebody's using Claude inside the targeted Mexican government environment. They of course go, use their government power to go talk to Anthropic. Anthropic goes and pulls all of the chat sessions, and they see here's a Spanish speaker, right? They're typing in Spanish, not typing in English. Who's interacting with Claude, asking it to help it work on a penetration test and using, because obviously Claude's got safety mechanisms. I'm not going to help you hack these guys, but he's using social engineering against Claude to trick Claude into helping him to work a bug bounty and a penetration test to then ultimately navigate through there. And one of the outputs of that was something like a 1,300 line Python script that was custom to extracting data out of a specific internal homegrown application inside the environment. Like, okay, this is where AI is gonna cruise and gonna win. So we see that, and then we also see on the like the darker side, people not using the what we'll call the foundational models, not using the big ones that you've heard of, Claude and OpenAI and Gemini from Google. They're not using those. What they're doing is they're taking some of these open source models, like DeepSeek, which came from China. They're taking them offline and they're basically hacking the safety guards, the guardrails on them. So they're basically saying, I'm gonna go take all of the things that would check for, are you doing things that are unlawful or whatever. They basically modify that all out of the code. And then what they do is they run with them. And then those versions, they'll run offline. So it's a local copy. It's not in somebody's big cloud. It's like their own personal version. And those versions are then assisting them without, like, they won't say, no, I won't do that. They'll just do it. That whole process, by the way, fun word of the day is obliterated. So this is where they obliterate the security guardrails, and like that, because that's what the kids are calling it these days. So they're doing that stuff, and it's fascinating. But those open models are behind, right? They're behind 6 to 12 to 18 months. So we're going to see this race for this. And yes, there's mythos if you've been paying attention and Anthropic. But here's the thing. Let's get a dose of reality back in here. All of this stuff, like all technology, goes on these stages and it ebbs and flows. People freak out about everything. People freaked out when cloud came out. People freaked out about blockchain. People freaked out about mobile. People freaked out about Web 2.0. And every last one of these things, like there's a technological progression and they just kind of staircase up. So I'm not totally concerned that Anthropic has this model that they claim is can like hack anything. For one, the CEO's got a reputation of saying things that are much bigger than they really are. So there's a little bit of, okay, we've heard that from you before and we're all still alive. So I can't really fully believe you. And number two, we know that what'll happen is it's most likely going to find, there's not an infinite number of vulnerabilities, right? So it can't just constantly come up with new vulnerabilities. It's going to have to just go take care of the ones that are out there. And so we'll just see this, like for most people, it'll just mean like your Microsoft patches are going to get heavier and heavier. Your Apple patches will get heavier and heavier. Your Android patches get heavier and heavier. And great. And then once those are caught up, they'll taper off. But where I see a year from now, if you're let's say you're a 500 to 1,000 person shop and you've got some special apps that some software that you guys that's unique to your business. If your software is relying on open source libraries that are not mainstream, you're the one that's most at risk. That's where I see this. Because if a third party can say, oh, I found this little, because we see supply chain stuff all the time, right? Like this is the new thing. There was a Node.js module that got popped like in the last month. And there's another one I think that was flying around, like a Python one I think I just saw in the news yesterday. So we're going to see stuff like this where it'll be some little library that's used by some number of people. They'll find a vulnerability in it, they'll go after it, or they'll introduce backdoors into the supply chain and the open source. And this is going to be the nuisance for some time. By the way, the best way to deal with that is really, really fast detection and response when a threat actor starts to use it, and hence WireSpeed's in a really good position to help.
We see that coming. We see people taking the proper steps, but also not knowing everything they need to do to protect themselves. And so conversations like this are really, really helpful and educational for our audience. Tim, thank you so much. We need to schedule 3 hours next time. I think that's what we need to do. I mean, we still have like 20 questions, and unfortunately not enough time to discuss them. And your perspective and what you've built and how you're approaching it with Coalition is fascinating. I think it's unique for our customers and our clients, and something everyone needs to look at. So especially, I think the IT needs to get involved in the insurance discussion because they're not as much as they need to be. And the executives need to be involved in at least some understanding of the technology and the risks there. And they need to own those risks and then transfer them to the insurance together with their IT folk. So
what's really fascinating about that, Mike, is that is exactly our business problem. So we have 100,000 policyholders that are finance people. They understand risk, they understand accounting, they do not understand tech. And at some point, they're the same guys buying the property and casualty insurance, they're buying the company liability insurance, they're buying the fire insurance or whatever, and telling you, okay, I need so many fire extinguishers in the building. But when it comes to the cyber stuff, like it's just one more, and I just want to understand the risk. And so the challenge we have at Coalition is threading across. So if you know from selling IT stuff, you're always talking to technical buyer and you're like, man, if I could just get over to the finance guy and connect the dots here, that this would make a lot of sense. And then the finance guy would give air cover and budget to the IT guy to make the right decision. And we're over here going, oh, dude, if I could just go the other way, right? I get to the technical guy from here. And so this is why partnerships with you guys are great, because you can help us do that.
Thank you so much. Thanks, everyone, for joining our podcast. Everybody. And Tim, you're awesome. Appreciate you.
Yeah, good to see you guys.
Talk to you later.
Yeah.
Bye.